Solicitor by day and musician by night, my guest today is Lachlan Edwards from OFRM. He is a director and owner of a regional law firm that is setting the standard for law in regional Australia. Lachlan is an absolute legend. He is affectionately known by me as the lawyer who makes law not sound boring. He has got lots of advice and tips and some fun stories throughout this episode, and he also puts me through my paces on some scenarios, and I want you to be listening out. They're very relatable and common potential scenarios that business owners might go through, and in a little game show style segment, will Caleb go to jail or not? Who knows? This is a great episode. I hope you really enjoy it and get something valuable from it. Let's take it away. Lockie, thanks so much for joining me in the studio. It's so cool to have you here.
Caleb, it's a pleasure, as always. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. I have a feeling that we're going to have a lot of fun on this episode.
Yeah.
I remember I've met you a couple of times over the years, but the key most recent memory of having a great time with you was you spoke at a business collaboration collective meeting, and I went into it thinking HR law, like business law,
Boring.
could be boring.
Lame.
could be
I
boring.
think myself that some days.
But I was pleasantly surprised, can I say. I sat in there, and you went through your presentation. It was very interactive, and it was a whole lot of fun. The only issue upon my reflection is that I may have ended up in jail on some of the case studies that you reviewed. And I thought, man, Lockie's a guy I need to know.
So you can avoid jail?
Yes, I can avoid jail.
Let's try.
Yes, but you made the subject matter very interesting and very relevant.
Good.
So I thought being a director at a wonderful local law firm, regional business, I thought, let's jump on the podcast and have a chat about what it looks like to run a regional law firm and how to make law interesting.
Good question.
We'll dive into that. Firstly, I want you to give us a bit of a snapshot of what OFRM is, the business that you're a director at.
Yeah. So OFRM, a multidisciplinary. So we help everyone in Bendigo, right? So individuals and businesses. So we will do your will. If someone passes away, we'll do the estate work for you. If someone challenges a will, we can help you with that. We can help you challenge a will. If you have a separation, we'll help you do your family law. So that might be kids or property. Then you get to the less interesting or juicy side of it most of the time, which is the commercial work, which is what I do. So I do business work and property work, and probably the best way, and then we do conveyancing as well, which buying and selling real estate. Probably the best way to work through that and explain what I do particularly is to just say, from the moment I come into the office, what it's like, right?
Yeah.
So should we do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Get in at 7 o'clock. That's kind of my routine. Make a coffee, open up the computer. Sometimes I like to try and do the deep work then, because it's like, all right, It's going to get hectic once people arrive.
Yes.
People get to work.
Yes.
So sometimes I'll be like drafting an ownership agreement or a contract. Boring. But it's time, really deep focus work. Yeah. So then we might get to say 8:30, I might jump on the emails. Okay, what's coming overnight? Some stuff about appointments. Then the phone starts ringing, right? So I've got in my diary 2 things to do. Someone calls and says, and it's Caleb, and he's like, hey, I had this problem with this employee. Can you help me with that? I'm like, all right, reprioritize these 2 other things. Let's talk. So what happened? Get off that phone call. All right, I got to go to my 9 o'clock meeting, okay? And that's with the business owner about maybe setting up their business for success, which is primarily what I want to do.
Nice.
I want to be adding value. I want to be part of their business. I want to understand it. I want to understand what their objectives are. Sometimes I can see that quite clearly. Sometimes you got to work with people. Like, you might have an idea what your objective is, and then we work together and we're kind of reframing it a bit.
On the setting a business up for success, it is engaging a lawyer the only about avoiding risk, or is there a proactive nature of strategy that doesn't involve not getting in trouble?
So I see it as 4 stages, right?
Yeah.
So the first stage is setting your business up, right? So there's this concept of business structure, whatever the heck that is. And normal people use normal language and they would say, I'm going to be a sole trader, or I'm going to be a company, or this concept of what a trust is, which normally people go to their accountant and they're like, okay, whatever you recommend, right?
Yeah.
So I would sit down with you and say, okay, what do you want to achieve? Is your business just dipping your toe in the water, or is it actually world domination?
Yeah.
Is it somewhere in the middle? Do you know? Do you not know? Okay. Do you want simplicity? Do you want the ability to add other people, employees, bolt on other types of work? And then we work around that. So that's phase 1, which is let's figure out what this is and set up a structure so we can, meet a long-term objective
Nice.
or a short-term.
Yep.
Phase 2 is, okay, so what do we need to do to get the infrastructure around that to set you up for success? So for you, it might be, hey, I'm doing a lot of these podcasts. I need this guest to sign a waiver so he's given up all his intellectual property rights to me so I can make all the money off his excellent podcast appearance.
Great. We'll talk after this.
I've prepared one here. No.
Perfect.
It could be as simple as, all right, well, maybe it's, the boring document stuff.
Yeah.
Or it could be, okay, well, how do we negotiate deals with buying other businesses, things like that.
Nice.
Then we get to the more reactive stuff, the less proactive stuff. And there's probably a mix of 50-50, I reckon, in what I do.
Yep.
So the third phase is dealing with stuff as it comes up. So that might be the phone call. Hey, I need to talk to you about this employee who's gone and posted something on social media. What do I do? What do you do?
What do I do? I call you. What do you mean? What do I do?
You fire them.
Yeah.
It's not the 80s anymore, no. So yeah,
get rid of them.
So that's your third phase, and then you get your final phase, which is exiting, right?
Yep.
Whether that's on good terms voluntarily, whether something's happened to someone, or there's just been a total falling out, right?
Yep.
And so if you get it right in phase 1, so for example, you have an ownership agreement, people call them shareholder agreements, equity holders, partnership agreement.
Yep.
That will actually give you a process for the end, whether that comes 5 days in or 50 years in.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. I was thinking you don't often realize how important early decisions were until you get the moment where it really matters, and you can notice.
Yeah.
Oh, this is okay because I made that decision back there, and I was advised to do that back there.
Yeah.
Like the structure kind of thing.
Yeah.
Going, oh, I don't have all these problems that everyone else has because I'm, a company owned by a trust, and wasn't my genius to set that up at the start, but thank goodness someone advised me well.
Yeah. I think there's a balance between the entrepreneurial mindset of just getting it done and also thinking about how to get it done properly. Because if you're too busy thinking about it and not doing it, you don't go anywhere, right?
True.
Yeah. So there is that risk level of, like, there is the managing the risk, but also the just doing.
Just getting it done.
Doing it. Yeah.
True. I want to unpack a little bit about the business of OFRM. You mentioned you've got a lot of different services, and you can serve all people. That's a marketer's nightmare, because we say when you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one. But the beauty of the OFRM is that you've got different, like, do you call them departments or different, like, areas.
Yeah,
where,
I mean, technically you'd say legal areas, disciplines.
yeah.
But they all kind of feed into each other. So every department knows about contracts, right?
Yeah.
So you might have a binding financial agreement in family law, that's a contract.
Yep.
You then might have a deed of family arrangement, which sets out how a family is going to do things with their estate or inheritance. Contract to buy land, contract to buy or sell business, right?
Yeah.
So there is that legal element or substance part that links everything together.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, we're all about the person and what the person wants, like helping the client.
Nice.
Yeah.
With a business that has different areas and different services like that, I'm assuming you've got different teams assigned to those different services.
Yep.
The risk can be operate in silos and it's like they're separate businesses that don't have anything to do with each other. Is that how it operates at OFRM?
No. I'll give you an example. So once a month we have this thing, Lunch and Learn, where our lawyers get together. Yeah. And yesterday it was all just about talking about the really interesting stuff we do.
Nice.
And just keeping your brain ticking over. Like we were hearing about the family law cases we've got at the moment. One which could create new law, which is really exciting.
Whoa.
And yeah, for us it was like the other lawyers in the room who don't get to touch that in their day-to-day were just really interested.
Yeah,
Tell us more about this. And I guess when you're in the court system, you have the law might be different, but the underlying, I guess, processes and the way you present evidence are the same.
Yep.
Yeah.
As an aside, can you just lay out for me really simply lawyer, barrister, solicitor?
Yeah.
Differences?
Differences, yeah. So when you get admitted
Yeah.
to the law, so that's when you get your ticket
Yep.
and you can drive.
Yes.
Doesn't mean you're any good. You get admitted in the Victorian courts as a barrister and solicitor.
Yep.
And then in the federal system, you can do that as well. I'm rambling.
Okay.
Basically, the difference is
Yes.
a solicitor and a lawyer are the same thing. One's just an American word.
Okay.
Solicitor's a bit more old-fashioned, dusty textbooks on the wall.
Yes.
A solicitor will be what I do,
Yeah.
day-to-day working with clients, more office-related work, still go to court, still do court appearances.
Yeah.
A barrister, you have to pass a separate exam, and primarily what you're doing is convincing judges every day, being in court, presenting evidence,
Righto.
being the one who comes up to you and questions you and corners you in the witness box.
Yeah, great. So the barrister is their primary role is in the courtroom and most of their work is there, and a solicitor is more direct client relationship leading through that kind of
There's
way.
nuances and differences. Sometimes barristers will just do a lot of advice work.
Yeah.
But that's more based on here's how I'm going to convince a judge or how I'd get a certain thing through the ATO without getting caught for something naughty. Here's the most effective way of doing that.
Yes.
Whereas my role is to work with you. Okay, what does your business want? What do you want to achieve?
Yeah.
How do I become a long-term part of your success?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thanks for laying that out for me. I know there was differences, but I haven't cared enough to discover what they are.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to OFRM. There's some good team cohesion and cross-pollination that you kind of set up. I'm interested from the business structure perspective, how are most law firms started and do they all kind of end up looking like OFRM, or how is OFRM kind of different or unique in a business structure?
Yeah. It's so easy to be a lawyer these days. Like there's a lot of law graduates who all you need is that and a coffee and and a phone, right?
Yes.
And you can, once you've got your ticket, you can go and run a law firm.
Yeah.
And your insurance and your license. But I think what we pride ourselves on is just the best, being excellent, like a thirst for knowledge, a thirst for being great, right? Because then you can go to somebody who's actually going to know what they're talking about.
Yep.
And you get the benefit of having different practice areas. So I can be like, hey, Caleb, you should do your will and go and talk to my expert colleague. Or, if something happens with your relationship, hey, jump over here. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of really speaks to the idea that you're here to serve individuals throughout every area of their life, no matter
exactly.
what area of law they may need to draw on assistance or expertise in.
I think about it from my perspective. Like, part of the work I do will be, let's buy a business. Okay, but hey, an even better investment is let's buy the properties that it runs from as well. Great. I don't want to have to send you somewhere else to do that.
Yeah.
And make your experience worse.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so you can draw on the conveyancing expertise within the business. Love it. Tell me about your ideal client and your target area. Like, what sort of people or catchment area does OFRM serve?
Regional Australia, regional Victoria. Ideal client for me as a business person, there's probably three. There might be the person who runs a small business, they don't have to be educated. But then you've got the person who's management level, runs a small, medium-sized business. And then you've got the higher-end directors, owners who are looking really for a trusted advisor, governance advice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice. And so if someone is, say, in Mildura or Gympie or I'm trying to think of some other regional tiny crazy places.
You don't get out much, do you, Caleb?
Or like even regional New South Wales, like who are you set up to serve and not serve? Would you say, no, excuse me, we're only regional Victoria? Like where does your reach?
We could help those people. Yeah. I mean, the law is generally the same. There might be some nuances here or there, but you pride yourself in being an expert. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little sidebar. There's an interesting element I want to unpack about pricing and value and especially in a law firm. You know, the expectation is that lawyers, no matter who they are, they're going to be expensive, and so it's like accountants almost. You know,
get what you pay for.
Yeah, you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
But you call them up, and you know they might charge you by the 32nd or something. How do you structure pricing, and is there variation in that within your business?
Yeah. So most people think of lawyers as charging me for every 6 or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So we are actively trying to move away from that.
Okay.
Where it's this concept of value pricing.
Cool.
So value pricing is basically, if you come to me, Caleb, and you want me to do your terms and conditions for your podcast that I sign before this started, and I'm giving you all my rights to make money out of it.
Yes.
I would say the value of that is X.
Yep.
Right? X dollars. Doesn't matter whether it takes me 5 hours to do that.
Yep.
That's on me to get to get better from a business perspective.
Yeah.
But that's the price. And
Love
conveyancing's worked like that for many years.
Right.
This is what the market price is, or this is the value of that work.
Yeah.
So that's what we can charge.
I love that. I'm a big fan of value-based pricing because it wins for both parties, so long as the in most cases, it will take an appropriate amount of time to do something, but the time shouldn't necessarily determine the value of it. It is the value to the person who receives it and uses it should be where value is attributed.
Yep.
And so it's a big thing in design, especially because you think a designer, a good designer will be quick at coming up with genius designs.
Yes.
They should not be penalised and earn
You're paying
less
for the expertise, that's right.
because they did it faster. They got a better outcome.
Yep.
It doesn't matter that they did it faster. That's right. You're paying for their expertise is their ability and their history and their experience to be able to get that result.
Yeah.
And the time it takes them is irrelevant. It's the result that we want.
Yeah.
And so there's value
That's right.
attributed to that level of result. You get what you pay for.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. I love that you're embarking on and really shifting the narrative there in terms of pricing.
Yeah, so we really aim to do that in all areas of practice.
Love it.
Yeah, particularly commercial work. Yeah.
Great.
Whereas here's the price, that's what it is.
Good. So for the advice I've gotten on this podcast, I'm not expecting a massive bill after this.
Of course not.
Great. Thanks, Lockie. I'm interested in talking a little bit and uncovering now about your journey as a law professional.
Yes.
How does one go from getting their driving ticket to the law to to being a director in a law firm?
Yes. Well, should I start right at the start?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Deniliquin. Do you know Deniliquin?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a pole with a ute on it, and then a Macca's, and then about 8 pubs.
Wow, they have a Macca's?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Right near the ute on the pole. You've seen it all.
Yeah.
So I started there, son of a TAFE teacher and a plumber.
Yeah.
Yep. Went to Deniliquin Public High School. Decided that a bit more adventurous than Deniliquin. So went to Melbourne, went to uni, studied journalism.
Wow.
Back in the day when it was newspapers and print media.
Wow.
So there wasn't podcasts.
Yeah.
I don't know, like 2003 we're talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, but I was having too much fun trying to figure out who I was.
Yes.
But I thought I got to the end of my journalism degree, and they hauled you into this room, and as a 20-year-old with big aspirations that I didn't know what they were, they're like, so you can have 2 jobs, and this is what's available. You basically go back and do a cadetship at the Addy or whatever, or you can just sell advertising for network television. It's like, that's probably not for me where I'm at right now. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, they didn't bring you any, there wasn't any allure in those 2 options?
Not at the time, no.
Yes.
So I thought, well, why don't I have a crack at law?
And what on earth possesses you to go, journalism, those jobs aren't so good, let's have a crack at law?
I think there was always this passion that I developed in high school for it. And then what probably led me to journalism was the creative side. And that's, the 2 kind of competing parts of the personality, the sensible side and then the creative side.
Yeah, we'll get into some more of your creative pursuits, I'm sure, and touch on those. But so you, after studying journalism, you went straight into law?
Yep.
Wow.
Basically. So all of my friends have finished uni and I'm just starting again. Started from ground zero.
It's quite the choice. Well done.
Yeah. So did that for 4 years.
Yeah.
So 7 years of study all up. And then pretty much at the end, the market was saturated with law graduates.
Wow.
And opportunities in Melbourne were limited. So I thought, well, I'm just going to go and volunteer at a community legal centre. Did that at a couple of different places. You get your foot in the door and work as a legal assistant. So providing support to people, doing lots of printing, scanning.
Yes.
Just listening, wanting to just absorb it all and understand how on earth does this work? What do I need to know? Yeah. And then eventually kind of was able to somehow demonstrate that I was worthy of a lawyer job and it all went from there. So I did 7 years there with a gap in the middle where Penny, my wife, and we went overseas and I did work as a journalist for a little bit.
Oh,
yes.
There you go. Put the journalism hat back on.
Well, that was interesting. So we went to Canada and basically had a year off. So I had a different bunch of hodgepodge jobs and wrote stories about, what happens on a ski hill, which was kind of fun.
That is super fun.
Yeah.
What a random little gap year.
Yeah.
I guess you didn't have a gap year earlier on, like you thought?
No, I was in too much of a hurry, Like many business owners, you've got that drive and you self-start and was in too much of a hurry to do whatever the next thing was. I didn't sit back and probably reflect at that time. But that trip was a good example of maybe it's not you don't know what you've got until it's gone, but it was more actually I do know what I like now.
Great.
So it was a good, sometimes everything in life is timing, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And so you came back. What happened next?
Came back, had a couple of years back in Melbourne, basically running court cases, taking on the banks, taking on the insurers for the little guy.
Yeah, nice.
Little person.
With some good wins there, were there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah. Saving people from, losing their home when they had, an injury or an accident and couldn't work anymore, right? So really interesting work, tough work, hard work, like could be quite draining.
Yep.
And I think we got to a point where it was timing that it was, we need to move back to the country. Yeah. And sometimes the greatest opportunities just land on your lap. So I sent a message to a friend who works in a coffee shop here. Yeah. Like, do you know any lawyers? And he's like, yeah, I know this one lawyer, Marika McMahon. So Marika's director and owner of OFRM Lawyers as well.
Yeah.
So reached out and the rest is history. Landed on my feet. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
From a coffee shop connection.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so good.
It's a good example where you just things can just happen, right?
Yeah.
Just at the most random times in life. Could just be some networking event you go to, but you got to chase those opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time. And so did you want to pursue business law specifically, or how did you end up, leading that kind of area?
It fit my skills, right? And I think a lot of lawyers find themselves pigeonholed into an area that they start in and they just probably like a lot of professions. But yes, I did. And I was also interested in property law, which, business lawyers have to do a decent chunk of that as well.
Yep.
But yeah, it was really my passion to come back here, find a community that I could be a part of and help the people that were part of that community, help, whether it's your friends or your acquaintances or people within that community. And that's what I lacked in Melbourne. I didn't have that connection with community to be able to say, how I can help Caleb, Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Now, what is the difference between a director's position in a law firm and a standard kind of worker bee that is just getting it done?
You're an owner, so you've just got to do what you got to do.
So it means the stringent adherence to entitlements and timing go out the window.
No. It's it's like any business owner. You've got your primary work you want to do, but you really enjoy.
Yeah.
And in an ideal world, you would have a model where you had the support around you to be able to just do that. But I don't think any business owner has that, where you don't have the things that you've got to do on a day-to-day basis to keep a business running.
Yeah. And so I'm assuming you would be stepping into a bit of governance roles there that are not just operational. And do you want to lay out the differences there in a law firm in general? There's your board of directors. Does that operate the same way? And there's the governance, and then operations are kind of different areas, I suppose, different responsibilities.
Yep. Look, we are still a medium-sized business, so it can be very difficult to differentiate between operational and strategic.
Yes.
And it's one of the biggest challenges I find for me personally, is getting your head out of operations and thinking, here's where we want to be in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
This is what we want to achieve.
Yeah.
Is this decision I'm going to make tomorrow or right now under pressure, emotional, because I've just walked out of a client meeting, I've got to go to the next one.
Yeah.
Is this actually going to be the right decision for the future and where we want to be under our strategy and what our values are?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the multiple different hats that a director or an owner has to deal with, right? Like having been in board roles and in other organizations, I didn't really realize that separation and the distinct responsibilities and the freedom that can give an organization if the directors aren't in the operations. Because as an owner of a business, we're all of it, right? We don't get to be, governance, strategy, compliance, and separate that from working in the business. And to me, I have to do it all. And there's no separation.
I've seen it both ways, right? So I'm also a director of B Bendigo and company secretary, so effective board member at Red Energy Arena, so the Bendigo Stadium.
Yep.
And I've also been company secretary at Bendigo UFS.
Oh, wow.
So I've seen it done. I've seen what you're talking about, so
Yeah.
the separation.
Yep.
I've seen where board members and the board works really well.
Yep.
But you simply, for high achieving people, there is always a level of, geez, I'd love to be able to just get in there and get it done sometimes. Because here's how not necessarily I want to be controlling, but there is a real advantage in being able to, if you can get the mindset right, strategy, operation, and separate them and implement and just get it done.
Yeah. I hear you. And I think probably the reason I've enjoyed having a board position that doesn't involve the doing is because I have more than enough doing to do over at Hebron Films and all the other things that I do without taking on the responsibility and the weight of going, here's the strategy and, good luck. I'm here to help, but I'm not going to do it for you.
Yeah, and it's pretty heavy taking on an external director role because at the end of the day, you have you should have no operational influence, right?
Yep.
Or day-to-day management.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, you're responsible.
Yeah, it's pretty full on, isn't it?
You need to have a lot of trust and confidence in those people that are managing day-to-day. Right?
Yeah. All we can do is hire the best possible way we can and then keep them accountable and encourage.
Well, yeah, and I recently did the company directors course and we had an external lawyer come in on day 2 or 3 to do there's a section called the legal environment.
Yep.
And, it's a lawyer who comes in relatively practical, my style, pragmatic, but presenting all of these risks to people and scenarios. And you had people in the room just like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. What do you do? And, how do you, if you're not there every day, how do you stop this? And her insight, which was really valuable, I thought, was you do just have to have great relationships and trust and confidence in CEOs, executive level.
Yep.
Otherwise, you don't know if you're getting the information, how it's being filtered.
Yeah. We have I set you up with a little bit of a interesting exercise. A throwback to when you told me, Caleb, you would be in jail if you did that. I want to see how I go here.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're going to throw some cases at me?
Yeah, I'm going to throw some scenarios. So these are based on real cases. There's none of my client confidentiality that's coming out.
Okay, good.
But let's just see how Caleb passes the test.
Unpack some stories, and I'll see if I'm going to end up in jail at the end of it, and then we'll see what actually happened.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm going to go through the phases, right? So I'm going to do 1, maybe 2 in the middle of where there's. So if we start at the start. So okay. So if you need to take notes, grab a pen and paper.
Okay, I'm here.
So Caleb and friend, we'll call you a friend. Caleb and friend are filming a podcast exercise and they decide that we had such a great chat, we get on really well, let's create a side hustle out of this, which is some other form of videography or something like that.
Yes.
And through a connection, you go and find someone who's going to host the platform and do the editing, basically for free.
Okay.
Right? Great deal, easy to get off the ground. Let's do it. Why be held back? Let's get it done.
Yes.
Then, so you create the name, create the branding. Your friend doesn't have a company or a business. They're just doing it as a side hustle. And then you do a couple of episodes, it's going gangbusters. Your friend decides, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to take the name and the brand. What do you do?
So have I set up any formal structures already? No, we just got in and get it done.
You're just being creatives.
Yeah. This sounds like a bad situation.
You won't go to jail if you get this one wrong.
No. Yes, I might lose everything that I built.
Yeah, that's right.
So, my friend says, I want to take it all. I want to take the name and the platform would do something else apart from you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but you also want that, right? Because
Okay.
you've put in the sweat and
Yep.
the hard work, and this is part of your brand too.
Yeah. So do I want to leave it?
You'd be happy to move on, but you want to get paid out for your contribution, right?
So I would personally engage in a conversation with my friend and say, hey, look at what we've built. Look how cool this is. Let's define its value.
Yeah.
And then come to an equitable agreement. I'm happy for you to take it on. I have shiny objects syndrome, and I've also thought of some other things I want to do that are not this, so I'm not worried.
Yeah.
Let's come to an agreement on how much you're going to pay me to take this from me.
Yeah. And friend says, no, I created this. Why should I have to pay you anything? It's not worth anything, Caleb.
And then I say, mate, I think we would have a much better relationship going through this if we came to a win-win scenario where you win and I win.
Yeah.
I don't want to screw you over, and you're my friend, so I would assume we've got a relationship that means you don't inherently want to screw me over. Is that right?
Well, I don't know, but I like where you're going with it, because what you tend to see is one of you starts to get a bit legalistic, whether you've used ChatGPT or you've got a mate who's a lawyer, or you've gone and gotten professional advice, and people start saying, well, I'm entitled to this, and here's what the law is around partnerships, because that's what this would have been if you were carrying it on with a view to making money, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and so what would happen, you'd probably come to an agreement and you'd keep it out of the Supreme Court, which would be nice. Which would be really nice.
Yes, and less expensive for both of us.
Like there would be no cost benefit in running it if we're talking about, we don't know. I mean, it's speculation. What are you giving up?
Yep.
So I agree with you. I'd want to get an idea of what's this worth, okay? So do I know the goalposts? Is it worth $50 million in the future? Is it just a side hustle that's $50 a month, right?
Yep.
And then we can figure out, well, what's the best case, worst case? Where do we want to fit? What are your long-term objectives? Do you even care?
Yes.
Why don't you just take your own brand, stop wasting time with lawyers and arguing, and make money elsewhere, or have, So I'd look at it that way. I mean, the infrastructure you could put in place is let's just go and do this, let's have an agreement in place about what happens if it breaks up.
I would have much rather have had those agreements in place to start with. I have gone through a partnership dissolution, breakdown of.
This is getting really close to home, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
We on camera?
Yes.
Tell me more.
They don't exist. And so I've been in this, and I've also been in other scenarios where there's been a point of contention or an area where two people want to go separate ways, me and another person, and the moment. I can tell the moment when things get a little hairy. It's when I get a response to something I've said that says I've gotten legal advice.
Yeah.
That's like
bring in the lawyers and ruin everything.
It's like it's kicking it up a notch, and what that says to me is I don't think we're going to be able to work this out together. Sometimes it's been out of fear, like I think Caleb might screw me over,
right?
And so I've had to come back and go, hey, well, let's pump the brakes here. I think we can get to an agreement between us because we have a relationship, and let's try and hold on to that.
Yeah,
and I'm here for you, and I know if. At the very core, you would like to be here for me. There's a scenario where we can both win. Let's go for that.
Win-win. Figure out what their objective or their interests are and try and find a solution that meets that.
And that's particularly challenging if there has been no structure, there has been no agreements. That could get really messy, right?
You just have nothing to fall back on,
Yeah.
right? So basically you're either putting your hands in a judge who has to decide who they like, who they want to believe, or you're just hoping that whatever strategy you run will reach an agreement with the other person.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's factors into that. You know, in any court cases, there's time, there's fatigue, there's money.
Yeah.
You know, these are all factors you can exploit. Not that I'm suggesting we do, but
That's
there's
right.
the lawyer's hat coming on.
Yeah, that's right.
But that one's a good example. You see it a bit where people just get on with it, startup mentality, and that's great. I have no issue with that. And 9 times out of 10, you operate on goodwill and everything works out.
Yep.
But I tend to see the 1 out of 10 that that doesn't. So and your owner's agreement's really a piece of insurance to be able to say you can either do it as a way of setting out roles, expectations, people work through what their relationship's going to look like in doing that.
Yep.
Or you have people who are pretty clear on what they want to achieve, and it's just basically what happens if this thing ends.
Yep.
Or something unexpected happens to one of us and it needs to end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that scenario, say we've registered a business name,
Yep.
and that's about it.
Yep.
How would you go about advising someone to quantify the value of, IP or an intangible asset?
It may notionally have no value.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on the activities, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah, and if it's earning money and if it's doing,
it may not even be a partnership, right?
Yeah.
Legally a partnership.
yep.
Yeah.
Wow, fascinating.
But I mean, there's this concept in law called partition, which is about part-owned, like co-owned property. So if you and I just went and bought this building, right?
Sounds good.
Yeah, great. We get lots of rent. But partition is like a divorce for property owners, and it doesn't actually require agreement. You can apply to VCAT tribunal to make that happen.
Really?
There's some rules around what VCAT will order. So, for example, is the property sold or is it actually transferred to you and money paid and stuff like that? But yeah.
And if you joint own a property, you can just say, I'm out, and you don't need the other person to say, okay.
Nah. That's why you have this ownership agreement, right?
Wow.
Similar to a business. So then you can actually have a process for and set expectations. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So you're not going to jail for that answer.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Yep. And I've earmarked that idea. Lockie and I are going to buy the Emporium building. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. All right. Next scenario.
Yes.
What do you got for me?
Okay. So Caleb, Hebron Films is going gangbusters.
Yes.
You're basically stepped back from operations because you're just doing all the managerial work now, basically managing director, business development. You've got a team of 10.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's pretty hectic, isn't it?
Ooh, that sounds stressful.
Checking the bank account every 2 weeks to make sure you can make the pay run. So one morning you come in and employee A has posted something on social media.
Yes.
And employee B's found that and come to you, Caleb, and said, employee A has said this on the public forum. I don't think it goes in accordance with our values. Let's use an example. Do you remember the Israel Folau case?
Yes.
Where he made the homophobic posts online?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's just use that for an example.
Right.
Yeah. What do you do, business owner?
Oh, boy. This is great.
You can call me. That's fine.
Yes, I call Lockie and I'd say, this has happened. What do I do? Honestly,
totally.
That's what I do. No, I'm very relational based, and tell me if this would be to my detriment.
That's why you're calling me, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'd want to I'd want to assess first, kind of take stock of the whole situation, get all the facts, and go, all right, what exactly was the post? Who made it? Why? And why does this person think it's against our values? And then assess what my my kind of take on that is, and whether it's something that could dramatically harm our reputation as a business, or whether it's, kind of open to interpretation, and some people will find it offensive and some people will champion it. That that is kind of my initial process.
Yes.
But in that process, I'd be calling you and saying, hey, what's the risk here?
I think that's a very practical response. So in law, there's like one of the best parts of being a commercial lawyer is there's the commercial side to it, then there's the boring legal side.
Yep.
Sometimes you've got the greatest case in the world, but commercially, actually, we don't want to pursue that because we're better off making money by doing X, Y, or Z or letting it go.
Yep.
Right? Your time's worth more,
Yep.
Running your business development than hanging out with me.
Yep.
As much fun as we'd have.
That's right.
So the legal side of it,
Yep.
that's a very practical approach. The legal side's probably, have you got employment agreements with your staff, assuming they're staff and not contractors?
Yep.
That's a total separate thing. We can go down the path of that. And what do they say?
Yes.
So that's your agreement with them about the terms of which they'll be paid, when they have to show up to work, what they can and can't do, right?
Now, what if I have no employment agreements at all?
Okay, all right.
Could that happen?
You have no written employment agreement.
No written employment
So
agreement.
contracts can be verbal. So I could buy that coffee off you now and shake hands for $5, and that would be a contract.
I'd lose money on it.
But contracts can be partly by your behaviour or verbal or writing. So
Okay.
it might be exchanging emails, right?
Yep.
So you will have an employment agreement with them. It's probably just implied by the way everyone behaves.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
So that's the first thing is people think, oh, there's no contract signed, but you're like, it's not as simple as that.
Okay.
All right. Lost my train of
But
thought.
we have
can cut this.
we have company values, right? And so
Well, that's exactly where I was going. So if you don't have employment agreements,
Yep.
do you have workplace policies? Okay. So an employer can give a lawful and reasonable directive to an employee. And that's where policies are really good because the advantage is you make up whatever policies you want, they say whatever you want. Employee just has to comply with them. This is getting really brutal. Employment agreements, everybody has to agree.
okay.
So if you want to change something in an employment agreement, you need your employee to agree.
Yep.
Policies,
They don't have to agree.
up to you. So if you had a acceptable internet use or a social media policy,
Yep.
yeah, you might also have a clause in your employment contract that says, you have a duty not to do something that is unduly prejudicial to our reputation, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
If Israel Folau was in my business as a videographer, and we rewind to that scenario, and
Yes.
he has chosen the hill that he wants to die on, and he said, "This is what I value, and this is not okay,
Yes.
and I'm going to tell the world about it."
Yes.
I would honestly come to him and say, "Mate, is this the hill that you want to die on? Is this what you want to hang your hat on and be known for?
Yeah.
And is this belief and approaching it this way the way to enact that belief?"
And he says, Caleb, you can't sack me because of my religious beliefs. That's discrimination. You say, oh, shit. He's weaponized this.
Yeah, well.
Which is what he did, basically.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and so, there's obviously anti-discrimination legislation. Religion is one of the protected categories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well,
So-
with Israel, I'd be saying, mate, I'm a Christian too. Let's talk this
work
out,
through
mate.
this, yeah.
Let's work
Yeah.
this out.
yeah.
Wow.
So, so that's putting aside Israel Folau. So let's go back to just the simplicity of some employees done
Okay.
something dumb online,
Okay, cool.
which you found out about.
Yep.
So what do you do? The textbook steps would be find out what information, sit down with them. Is it serious enough that it's immediate dismissal?
Yep.
Or is it, okay, let's sit down and have a conversation. This is not up to standard. Here's your warning. Off you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I personally think what they have posted online is very serious, but others may not. It's fairly
Yes.
subjective. And I say, look, that's not okay. This is beyond a written warning. I'm going to have to let you go.
Yep.
Because I will not tolerate that behaviour
Yep.
in my organisation, and I want to protect the culture that we have. And so I'm going to let you go.
Yeah. So depends what it is, right?
Yep.
So serious misconduct, there's a definition of it in the Fair Work legislation, and I don't need to go through that, but that is where you can immediately dismiss someone.
Yep.
Okay. If it doesn't amount to that, then you have to give them an opportunity to be warned and improve, right?
Yep.
But I do think there's an element of, well, that's the law, and then practically, what do we stand for?
Yeah.
Commercially, what do we stand for?
Yep.
And that's where you come to me and I'd say, okay, well, what you risk here is that person doing one of two things. They might not do it at all. One is they sue you for unfair dismissal.
Yep.
Maximum 26 weeks. They're probably not going to get a reinstatement because the relationship's broken down.
Yeah.
Or they go down the other path, which is called general protections, which is they've exercised a workplace right and you've done something to their detriment.
Yep.
So you've sacked them or demoted them for expressing their view or being part of the union or something like that.
Okay.
So that's your risk. And you might be like, yeah, I'd be happy to pay 26 weeks salary to get rid of this. Like, this is such an invasion on our culture and what we're trying to achieve that and I'd be like, well, you pay me, we'll negotiate something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Righto.
So
if I've got 10 staff, is there like this like a threshold of number of staff or turnover before workplace
unfair dismissal?
Yeah, unfair dismissal
so
kicks
it's
in.
15, yeah.
15 staff.
Yep.
So we're not saying that if you've got less than 15 staff, you can dismiss someone with no repercussions.
Yeah.
Are we?
No.
No?
No, we're not saying that.
Okay,
No.
good.
No. And then when you've got associated businesses, there's different rules and there's a particular process if you're a small business to run through unfair dismissal. So it does apply for less than 15. It's just they have to have been employed with you for 12 months or more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Wow, the law is very detailed.
It's complicated, but there's often one of my old bosses told this story once and she was like, the law's just common sense. I'm like, well, most of the time we got to the point of common sense when we were getting to understanding what the law was. So, yeah. Requires a lot of moral rigor though.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I want to know about you might have another scenario up your sleeve. Do you?
No, let's go to that later.
Yeah, great.
I've got plenty.
Yeah, good.
This is fun.
I want to know in some of your cases, like there's obviously we don't want to lay out the details of people's lives, but I want to know if there's like been some big wins that you've thought, man, that was a great outcome that you are able to share without compromising confidentiality.
It's hard to talk about things where it's not going to be
because there's too many details that it might be triangulated to the right.
Yeah, there's probably a couple that went to court and a judgment was made, so they're public record that I could talk about.
Yep.
But they were in my previous job.
Okay.
And in those cases, they were more public interest-based litigation rather than let's think about the costs that everyone's going to incur to resolve this. And most of the time we'll reach a settlement because people don't want to waste their time and money, which I totally get.
What do you mean when you say public interest?
I mean, you think about what's best for particular objective. So I worked at Consumer Action Law Centre. Yep. So I had a strategic plan. One of those objectives was about car napping. Do you know about car napping?
You take a car and then you give it back?
Not really. So basically we had this situation where this person was driving along, was run into by someone who'd had a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
And the tow truck driver turned up and was like, here, sign this. Our client, the person who was run into, was obviously in shock.
Yeah.
They'd been in an accident. Oh. Sign this, we'll tow your car and you get a free hire car. Great. Sign it. Then what happened was the person who'd had the heart attack and caused the accident, they weren't paying up. Can't remember why. They're either uninsured or whatever.
Uh-huh.
So, but in the fine print, it says hire car company can sue other driver in your name if you sign this paperwork. Right?
Wait, the hire car company can sue the heart attack driver
Yeah.
in your name.
In
the okay.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? That means that
means
the person who signed it
you've signed
is
it.
suing,
Yeah.
but the hire car's using them to sue.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, to get their money back for the hire car fee.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, and that's what the fine print on the back of the paper said. The person who had just been in an accident was in shock, had to sign that document, right?
Yeah.
And was given a verbal assurance you won't have to pay for this, blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
So that's what we ran the case on basically was.
And what was the issue for the person that signed the paper? Like what impact were
just
they facing?
general morality of not wanting to sue the person who had a heart attack.
They didn't want to sue the person who had a heart attack. Of course they did.
Just moral compass.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But they were facing the issue for them was they were facing that
The hire car company was going to come after them if they didn't get it from the heart attack. Yeah.
boy, oh boy.
So it was rock and a hard place, right? We ran that one in the magistrates court.
Yeah.
Ended up succeeding.
Wow.
But, they'd misled and the hire car company had acted unconscionably, which is this legal term for against unethical.
Yep.
Basically. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit rude. And man, very
A bit rude.
bit rude.
It was a
very
bit hectic,
Yeah, very hectic. Wow. So that's a good outcome.
Oh, outstanding! And it was a on the record decision that you could go and put to media and politicians and say, "Hey, you need to do some laws around this. You need to fix this situation up so both people aren't being taken advantage of."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was, the outcome of that. We might have spent, in terms of people productivity, tens of thousands of dollars over a $3,000 case.
Yep.
But you then had a real example of being able to say, there's a gap in the law here. Let's fix this so it can protect people.
Yep.
Yeah.
And practical outcome wise, like how long did that case take, and what was the magistrate's decision on?
Just racking my memory, 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
Which is pretty quick and dirty justice in the magistrates court.
Yeah.
Yeah. Compared to a lot of the commercial, which is, you'd be just foot in the door 6 or 12 months in. Yeah.
And was there any penalty for the hire car company?
Can't recall.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just say, don't do that again.
Yeah. Naughty.
Don't be unconscionable.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, you said there was a couple. Do you remember the other one?
I told the story a bit. So we acted for a young man who grew up in Iraq, came to Australia, bought a car, was a lemon, bought it from a used car dealer.
Wasn't a Jeep, was it? You remember that song?
No.
They
what
bought
was
a lemon.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Used car dealer, we wrote to them and said, you've supplied a car that doesn't comply with these legal guarantees.
Huh.
There's a law called Australian Consumer Law. Basically says, the things you buy need to be acceptable quality, which is you get what you pay for.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So the used car dealer says, no, we dispute that, and there's a statutory warranty. It's outside that period, and that's too bad. So our client, okay, well, let's go to VCAT, which is the tribunal here in Victoria. You don't necessarily need lawyers. Sometimes you're not allowed lawyers.
Yep.
But his grasp of the English language and the concepts was poor, so he needed advocacy. And it was at the time when these laws were really new. They were New Zealand laws that we'd basically created here.
Wow.
To put protection in place for when people and small businesses buy things.
Okay.
Right. So you go and buy new podcasting equipment.
Yep.
Costs you $20,000. It comes. It breaks within 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So you're then most likely entitled to repairs on the supplier, not the manufacturer.
Yes.
Under warranty.
Yes.
Is separate from that, or a total refund.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, off to court we go, and we get to the hearing, and the used car dealer is representing himself. And halfway through the hearing, he pointed at my more senior colleague at the time and said, "We shouldn't even be here. This case, he agreed to a settlement, which created a lot of difficulty because we said we didn't, and a lawyer can't bear witness for the client. So we then had to go home that night and figure out, well, can we keep acting or not?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Right. And did he that's a spanner in the works. Did he actually intentionally know
I don't
what
think
he's
he
doing?
appreciated what he was doing. And, if you got a good grasp of legal ethics, you would have done exactly what we did, which was really think about, well, what's the right thing to do for the administration of the justice system?
Wow.
Do we need to step aside, get an adjournment, find a new lawyer, or do we just go in? Because we'd basically finished our case.
Yeah.
So all we had to do was go in and get that lawyer in the witness box to say, no, I didn't agree to it.
Okay.
And then the tribunal member, they're called the judge, had to look at him and say, oh, well, who do I believe, right?
Yeah.
Who's telling the truth?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we did.
Okay.
And we won.
Wow.
So there you go. Yeah.
And so Mr. Iraq got his money back for his car.
Yes, he did get paid in the end.
Great.
So it was a good result. But I mean, not to hang problems on the justice system, but it's many, many months where he had no money and no workable car.
Yeah.
So, some advocates in that system were advocating for an ombudsman service, which is free for people to go and try and get their disputes resolved early.
Yep. And so that the used car industry doesn't have an ombudsman.
No, not in Victoria. No.
Right.
No.
Wow. I bet there'd be a few of those cases.
Oh yeah, it's like it was
never
every
see the light of
second
day.
every second inquiry was problems with cars, and the difficulty you had was you had a power imbalance where a car dealer used or new would have expertise in motor mechanics and be able to say, well, no, this is not a problem or it's easily fixable, whereas me and you, we're like, it just makes a noise or it doesn't run, So you'd have to bring in an expert.
Yeah.
And that costs money, right? To
yeah.
do their report, to do their analysis. Sometimes you're taking engines out of cars.
Oh, man.
And that's only telling you what's wrong, not what to do to fix it.
Wow.
Or to fix it. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. Wow. So I think we've got time for one more scenario before I wrap this episode up and let you go save someone's day.
Yeah. Yes. Sounds good. Yeah.
All right, hit me. What do we got?
Okay. So we're going to go to the end of the journey, so end of a business relationship.
Yep.
Right. So Caleb, after this podcast, you invite me to become an owner at Hebron Films.
Great.
You just transfer some shares in the company to me.
Okay.
Things go great for about 5 years where we get a valuation, the business is worth a fortune.
Great.
It's a success.
50 million, let's say.
And I'm thinking, actually, I want to go and live in Canada in the Rockies.
Yep.
So I want to get paid out. So you got to pay me out my share. And you're like, hang on, I did all the work. This is my company.
Yes.
What do you do?
Oof. I think, how many shares did I give him again?
Half. You gave me half.
Half?
Yeah, that's right.
Why? I think
I didn't have to pay either.
Past Caleb. I mean, I know you like Lockie, but why did you do that?
You idiot.
You idiot. So I look back and search my Google Drive for our
But can I just add
ownership
something
agreement.
more?
Yes.
So I'm basically the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And you're the one that does all of this stuff. You're the face of the brand, right?
Yes.
So in your mind, you're paying for you. You're paying to own you. You're going to pay me, and we got a valuation. The business is worth $1 million.
Okay.
So you're going to have to pay me $500,000.
Okay.
Plus my employee entitlements.
Oh.
Plus I want future loss of profits because I'm leaving for you.
Oh boy. I go, Lockie, that's a big ask.
This is not fair.
Let me call my other Lockie, who's a business lawyer. may not be you.
Yeah.
Honestly, what would I do? I'd say, I think that's a bit unreasonable, mate. I think we might need to come to an agreement here.
Yeah. It's it's not dissimilar to your like the first one we went through, which is, well, how do we actually figure out what the separation is and who gets what.
Yeah.
And talking about ownership agreements and having valuations of the business and processes for that.
Yep.
Really is what it is.
Yeah. It'd be a negotiation process as well. I mean, I'm assuming I'd be thinking, well, you want to live in the Rockies in Canada. That's your goal, right? And you've seen this payout as your vehicle to do that.
Yes.
Is that really what you want to do? Is that your actual goal? And how can we find a solution that means that maybe you get closer to your goal, but it doesn't ruin the business at the same time?
You don't have to find $500,000 out of nowhere immediately, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just pull it from the bank account.
Yeah.
Because cash flow's great.
Yeah. Yes. Cash flow is great. Yeah. I've got like 10 years worth of expenses in the bank, as I should.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right. Yeah.
What's in the building? We'll sell the building. We bought the building, remember?
We bought the building. Yeah. That'd easily cover it.
Yeah.
Wow. I've been in a few sticky situations, not within Hebron Films, but externally, where I have just been so thankful for lawyers and people who can, be calm under pressure and go, Caleb, let me help you.
Yeah. I think like a lot of the value you bring in those kind of disagreement situations is just the objectivity. So not having the emotion.
Yeah.
And just the clear mind. It's a bit like the strategy. You come in and you think, I've done this before. I generally know where this lands.
Yep.
I'm not emotionally involved. I'm a trusted ear for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's been some really good outcomes, and it's a relief to have someone like that walk with you through the process, because emotions can be incredibly high, especially if in that scenario.
Yeah.
That would be very, very disturbing.
Yeah. You're thinking everything's great.
Yeah.
Everything's going well. We're killing it.
Yeah.
And boom.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, Lockie, thanks so much for spending some time with me. I want to land this episode on some of your key lessons in your journey in business, not just in law, but in now being part owner of a law firm, and even on the strategy side, or whatever you can draw on from your experience of getting to where you are now, and say, look, for another law professional who's listening to this, or just a business owner, what things have you learned that you're like, or challenges that you've walked through that you can say, this was a really valuable lesson that I learned?
Yeah, I'll start with one as a commercial or business lawyer. So I didn't feel like a great commercial or business lawyer until I knew how to and be involved in running businesses. So that took some time. The benefit of being on multiple boards, but also running a medium-sized business, is you understand the mechanics. So if you can come to me and say, hey, you run your own business, you get it. You get where we're going with this, okay?
Yep.
So that's the first one for any commercial lawyers or business lawyers out there. You got to find your opportunity somewhere. Join a not-for-profit board, join another board. Maybe if it's a good idea, start a side hustle. I don't know. But that will add the commerciality to your bow, and that will take you to the next level.
That's awesome. Yeah. Great lesson.
Yeah.
Any others when you drop on us?
The other one is there's a lot of power in listening and reflection. You can't be right all the time, but you need to actively schedule your time for how can I get better? And for me, that's listening and reflection, but it's also what do I need to succeed? So understand yourself, have the EQ, work on that.
That's cool. Yeah. In listening and reflection, that requires dedicated time. How do you structure, you said you get in pretty early to work and you try and get the intense work done before you're going to get all the interruptions that you know are coming. How do you structure your day in a way that means, or your week or your month in a way that means that you actually have time to reflect and to think?
You have to know what works for you, right? And you got to do the work on figuring out what works for you.
Yep.
And that's what works for me is getting it done, planning. So thinking, all right, here's what I want to achieve this month. Here's the 19 days I've got. Here's the time I'm going to actually plan it out. And that's what works for me. And I've got people who work for me that work the total opposite to that. Yeah. And chaos is their friend, right? And, you've got to play to people's strengths.
Yep.
So that advice isn't going to work for everyone. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Everybody's different.
Yeah, totally. And probably the final one is a little bit cliche, but you have to have balance, right? So it's as simple as having something outside of your work passion that is another passion.
What's that for you?
Well, it's probably music right now.
Love that.
Yeah.
Tell me about the music. How does that fit in?
Playing guitar and trying to sing.
That's
with
great.
some friends, yeah.
You mentioned the battle between the creative side and the other for you. And how are you? Did you enter that kind of band endeavor as oh my goodness, I'm out of balance, I need something, or was it fairly organic?
That was pretty organic. That was, let's just go and see what happens. Right?
Yeah, I love it.
And it's no different to any kind of thing you do with your friends or people whether it's sport or art, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Some kind of pursuit.
Yeah. I'm pretty impressed by that, Lockie, because I work in a creative industry-based business, it's a professional services firm, but still creative by nature. And so I know and I value creativity quite a lot. But there's a lot of people who would say, I'm not creative. I'm a lawyer. I'm not creative. That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard, but I always hear it.
It's confidence, that kind of thing. Like, this band I've never sung in my life, and now, I sing, right?
Yeah.
I'm good at it, no.
I bet you are.
Yeah.
No, I've listened to you.
But have you? Yeah.
Yeah,
but that was also just the previous singer we had's got this analogy where he's like, if you walk up to the edge of the cliff and are about to jump into the water below, do it properly. Dive in. Don't just kind of gradually stumble off the edge and fall down on the rocks below, right? The half pregnant analogy, right?
I love that.
Yeah.
That is so good.
Yeah.
I'm a visual person, so I can see that playing out in the good version and the bad version.
Yeah. It works for a lot of creativity is you're not actually going to get where you want to go without
diving head first.
Yeah.
Lockie, what's ahead for OFRM and your journey with the business? Like we're putting the strategy hat on a little bit. Like what can you share about where this business is going or what you want to see it achieve in regional Australia, regional Victoria?
Yeah. So we want to be the ones who set the standard for law in regional Australia. So, there's only so much I can say about the strategy, Caleb.
That's right.
But we do spend dedicated time on strategy and we track it.
Yep.
So for us, it's really important that we're accountable to that.
Yeah.
And, setting realistic measures along the way to get there.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, setting the standard. I can't wait to follow the OFRM journey as it progresses. And
thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for spending the time with
Pleasure.
me. It's very valuable. And
it's been fun.
How much, if you were going to charge me for this hour and a bit, what would I be up for?
This one's pro bono, Caleb. That was bad, wasn't it?
No, that was good. Love it. Thanks, mate.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Well, that's it for this episode. If you really enjoyed listening, why don't you drop a comment in the comments below? Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel so that you get updates on when all of the next ones come out. That really helps grow this little community of people that are diving into regional business and celebrating and learning more from it. So really appreciate your support and I can't wait to see you in the next one.